My name is Dan Armstrong. A little bit of a strange speaker today because I'm not really a mobile app developer or using these frameworks, but I visited ModUX Create a couple weeks ago in Reston for the first time. And for the last 10 years, maybe I'll... Can everybody hear me? For the last 10 years, I've been doing mobile banking services, mobile payment services. The last 5 or 6 years in Africa, Asia, South America, and I started up a mobile operator, Mobile. So my voicemail actually is coming from my bank. My phone is being given by my bank, like Virgin Mobile or other MVNOs in the United States. So essentially what I wanted to talk a little bit about today was about the consumer experience in certain things. Security, perception of security, and some of the things that we've learned is the theme of what I want to talk about, and also the mistakes that we've made. Before, maybe is this going to work at all, maybe? One of these, possibly? Yeah. Perfect, yeah. Okay, see if I can get this to work. Before I worked in the Netherlands in mobile banking and applications, I worked for a company called Proxicom, and we worked at Netscape, right? So in Netscape in 1995, 1994, 1996, this is before the Netscape browser, this is Mosaic, of course, HTML 1.0. We were making these websites, you know, for Pepsi, for Saab, for Visa, for Major League Baseball. There's, of course, no background colors. There's no center tags. So you have to actually space everything directly. There's no databases connected, so all pages are manually constructed. So at Netscape, what I worked on was something called the Netscape Merchant Server, right? This was the first real commercial HTTPS secure commerce server in the world, next to Open Market, right? So we were sitting there in 1994, 1995, working on this server, and we built something called Marketplace MCI. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because when we built this thing, we thought that everybody in the world, Amazon.com, Pepsi, Saab, they would all come to our server and get a store on our server to do secure transactions. You could use a credit card with HTTPS. We have the server come and, like a shopping mall, you could have a store in our mall. This is crazy, huh? This is not the way the internet occurred, but we really thought that this may be the way we would be doing commerce in the future. The reason I'm mentioning is because it's a paradigm shift, you know, some sort of strange expectation we had about the way the world was going to develop, but it was actually very different later on. Another example is something called 1-800-MUSIC Now. Do you remember this at all? It's the first online CD store in the world. Before CD Now, before all those other things. But of course, in 1994, 95, you can't download audio. There's no audio clips in browsers. So what you would do is you'd browse the CD store, and then you would pick up your fixed line phone and dial 1-800-MUSIC Now and push buttons on the IVR to listen to songs. And if you liked the songs, then you would buy a CD on the website. There's no connection with audio and web browsing. This is really how we thought you would have to be able to do it, right? And of course, the internet turned out to be very, very different. Long tail, pornography, unbelievable choice in products, unbelievable communication capabilities to advise you what to purchase and why not to purchase it, social media, etc. So we thought the web was going to be something, and it turned out to be really, really very, very different. I'm not saying that there's something to be learned there, but I am very aware of what we're building these days that sometimes copies the way an iPhone currently works, and then something changes about it, or mobile wallets based on a physical wallet that you might have had in the past. That's kind of what my presentation is about, how we're maybe building things that are not being asked for by customers necessarily, but maybe being pushed by technology people because it's possible to do it. And a good example, of course, is Bluetooth. Huh? For 10 years, Ericsson has been shoving Bluetooth down our throats. It's going to be the connected wire eliminator for everything. But now, of course, it's okay. Bluetooth low energy, it works in my car. My phone can start playing my MP3s in my car. But it was like 13 years of pushing a technology that nobody was really interested in until somehow we all just said, okay, fine, let's use it. So essentially what I'm talking about, because this is my area of expertise, arguably, if you will, is what is a transaction? And specifically a mobile transaction, but it could be any kind of transaction, right? How do we define a transaction? From an app development perspective, from a interactivity or a navigation perspective, traditionally we think, okay, value transfers, where I'm actually transferring money between my account to another account. It could be through an intermediary or with Visa or some other kind of scheme. Or maybe a prepaid wallet system like public transportation or PayPal, things like that. But a transaction could also be loyalty, the Groupon models that we see around the web these days, living social and apps. The ability to cash in a kind of a value or maybe have air miles is also kind of a transaction. But what is really strong and not quite in the minds of most organizations right now is that you also have this transaction which was the moment you decided to buy with a brand, or the moment you chose to go to KLM for your flight and not Lufthansa because you had a loyalty program with them, or you liked their service better, or you liked their Facebook capabilities. There's a moment that you change your behavior, maybe engender some trust, which is also a kind of a transaction, right? I mean, clicking on a Google ad can be relegated back down to 0.000 something cents. But there's also a capability, the time you took to do something, which is a kind of a transaction. It adds value to companies, I think. So trust is important, and I specifically mean this in terms of banks, because banks, all the banks I work for, have a lot of trust. They've been around for 100 years. Your mortgage is with them. If they screw something up, they only can lose trust. You know, they kind of have trust automatically, or you expect them to be trusted. Otherwise, you wouldn't use them as a bank, you know. These are some stats that I was given in April when I was in Hong Kong. 50% of consumers will pay more for products they trust. It's bullshit, these kind of statements, but I do think it's interesting when people do surveys about this stuff. 78% of consumers will look first to trusted brands when they want something. 78% are willing to give trusted brands a chance, even if they're not really sure the value of the product yet, you know? I mean, I downloaded iOS 7. It's kind of transparent. It's not really looking very good. Maybe I'll get used to it, but I did it because I kind of trust the experience that Apple's given me over time, and I also bought a HTC One. We'll see how that works. 82% of consumers choose a trusted brand's products or service frequently. Instead of moving between brands, they're kind of dedicated to a certain brand, right? 83% of consumers will recommend it unprompted to other people. If they trust a brand, they're going to give somebody else that information. The reason I mention this is that the key component to trust from, I would say, 2011 in the mobile space is user interface, right? How things work, how smooth it is. We launched mobile banking with Rabobank, my colleague from Rabomobil, Joost Reinen in the back, in 2003. 7 million customers of Rabobank. We had 5,000 people use WAP mobile banking. We had it for 7, 8 years, and the same 5,000 people used it. Nobody ever liked it. Nobody ever got into it. So then we launched an iPhone app, which is the same functionality, exact same things you can do, but it's kind of animated. It's like sexy. And we have 1.75 million people using it now, and 30% of those people don't even go back to internet banking. They don't even use internet banking. They just use the mobile app. It's great, even though it's radically less secure, has no two-factor authentication capabilities. It's just easier to use, so people love it. So I have a thesis, and tell me what you think about this thesis. Kind of a crazy idea. But if you have a transaction, right? You have people in the world that want to make a transaction, any kind of transaction, occur. They would like to reduce the cost for making that transaction because they have to actually make the app or give you a card or a dongle with an NFC chip inside it or whatever. So they're trying to lower the cost, but they want to get the transaction capabilities onto any device you as a consumer want. Then you have people that have channels, right? Like mobile operators. The mobile operators in the United States and in any country in the world, they have a GSM license, they purchased it, they subsidize handsets, they built a radio and access network, they sell phones to get people to pay back the cost that they spent the money they spent on the GSM license. Their shareholders don't care about transactions. They care about filling the pipe with pornography or mobile video or banking. It doesn't matter what it is, actually. Sometimes they do little apps to try to accelerate things, but they don't really care what the transaction's about. They just care about more transactions. So if we look at NFC, and NFC is a fantastic argument and argument causer these days because the iPhone doesn't have it. It never was going to have it. I've been arguing that for many years, to my chagrin, of course. But NFC is something where we're talking about near-field communications, 10 centimeters. It actually really works at 2 or 3 centimeters, technically with a card, which you could have. I just got a United States bank account because I'm moving there. So I got an NFC card automatically in my debit card. There's no EMV chip on this thing. It's just magstripe and has a Visa PayWave NFC in here. I asked my bank guy, hey, how does it work? He says, I have no idea. Just go to Walmart and try it. You never know. I said, well, what's the limit? When do I have to put a pin in? He goes, I have no idea. We have no idea. Just try it. This is who gave me this card. They issued me this card. So there's a fundamental push in the world to put NFC into mobile phones. We know that HTC and Samsung phones, the Google phones have NFC capabilities. We've been playing with this for very many years. But most people are thinking that NFC is like another kind of card. It's an expensive iPhone-shaped card. So you can use your NFC device to make a transaction instead of using your card, which I'm not sure why you'd want to do it. It doesn't necessarily add much value to your transaction because if you use a card, you can still check your phone and see your loyalty points, what you checked in, because they're all connected devices. Everything is connected at this point. So there's a lot of people that are talking about card emulation. Put as many cards as possible into your phone. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe consumers like that. There's a lot of people that are talking about bypassing card emulation. I don't know if you've seen it recently, but the iBeacon and PayPal here and a lot of other things where you could actually pay, for example, Square card case, just pay with your face, check into a location, authorize a low-value payment, just skip cards completely because people don't want to actually replace the point-of-sale device and put an NFC reader in place, especially when not many people have an NFC phone or have put the cards into their phone, right? So 2 fundamental ways to look at NFC as a technology issue. However, I don't know if consumers see it this way. Consumers see cards. They understand cards. Your grandmother can use cards effectively. It's a very known and inexpensive capability. So if we look at these 2 dynamics, right, you have card emulation, which is basically value on the chip or maybe value in the cloud that you're unlocking with an authentication capability. Or you're authorizing yourself with a card to be able to do something. So you can sign or you authorize yourself, you have a mag stripe, and you do something, right? Or if you skip it, you could just use an application to make a transaction, authorize a payment. This is what the iTunes Store does with the Amazon one-click patent. This is basically, I would call it a killer app, the ability to make in-app purchases. This is something you guys know better than me for sure. But there's 2 different fundamental ways of dealing with the transaction. But if you're in the supermarket, and there's a lot of people behind you in the line, you want something fast and something very quick and something very easy. You're not going to sit there and authorize and then swipe and do the PIN, log in, authorize a payment. So an app might not be the best way of doing a very low-value payment in a very quick way. I'm not sure. What we did in Robomobile is I used some of this money that we had to launch the mobile operator to do trials, pre-apps, pre-iPhone. We did a lot of trials to try to see whether it would be interesting to do transactions with a mobile phone. So here we did a Dutch debit transaction where you basically just emulated the Dutch debit card onto a phone, and still you entered the PIN as normally with a secure tamper-evident, tamper-resistant PIN pad. Everybody liked it. It was great, but it's just an expensive phone card that the battery can run out. You can't use it. Maybe you want to use a different one, and this only has your Visa card on it. There's a lot of problems with it, but people trusted the technology, right? So the second trial we did is we tried to use mobile phones for low-value payments, like $1, $2 kind of payments. Tried to see if people wanted a receipt, how secure they would be, did they want a confirmation? And it turns out that people want to make their own settings. Some people wanted a confirmation at every $1 or every $5. Perception of security is very important, so we had to build in some time in the transactions because it just, boom, happens too quickly. People don't trust it. It wasn't like a monetary transaction. And also, people would avoid Coke machines that did contactless payments if they had a phone that did it, because they thought that if they walked too close to it, the money would be leaking out of their phones somewhere around. I mean, these kind of things you learn. It's the software, but it's also the entire way it's being digested and used. The third trial we did was at Albert Heijn, which is the largest retailer by value in the Netherlands. At the Amsterdam station, the train station, they had tons and tons of queues. At rush hour, it's about 80% of transactions are missed because people are running into their train and they can't sit in the queue to buy coffee and things like that. So we did shelf-level tagging in a Java midlet with Capgemini, where you'd be able to build up a shopping list, tap, 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 and then just check out and leave without getting in the queue. So you could actually build up a shopping list and then check out. So then your phone is not only your issued card payment device, but it's also the acquiring terminal. So it was both sides of the story. Very successful. People liked it. They thought it was really cool. We gave them a free phone, so of course they liked it. But is it something people are willing to pay for or do, you know? This is where the app world has changed things radically, right? We see this with Square and PayPal. Square, PayPal, just two examples. There's a ton of other people, especially in Europe, where Magstripe is not allowed, where you can use a mobile device or an iPad or something as a acquiring device, a point-of-sale terminal, which makes it really cool for small mom-and-pop SMEs to be able to accept cards. Then you see the things I was talking about, Square Card Case, the Ware acquisition with PayPal, where you can say, I'm going to the coffee store that I go to every day. I check in when I get close, and I show up there, and then I say, please give me a coffee, put it on Dan, and they see the picture of me. It allows the retailer to get some, you know, loyalty benefits, and it's simple. I don't have to use a card. I can just pay. This is quite popular in some places in the United States, but also we have Starbucks apps and Starbucks cards and things like that being perfect for low-value payments, right? And you've seen this as well. Has everybody seen this in the last week? Who has seen this at all with the announcement of iOS 7? Anybody? All right, so this is new. Well, PayPal and Apple and their partners have launched a Bluetooth Low Energy device or devices that you could put into your retail stores. So then Bluetooth Low Energy, that is working with these iBeacon capabilities on iOS 7 and also with other phones as well, starts to give you information about the products. You can get more information. They're trying to avoid or help you avoid what you always do, which is you look at the bookstore, it seems cool, and you check Amazon because it's cheaper, you order it and get it at home. They're trying to enrich the experience in the store. This is really interesting. It's not a transaction per se, but it could be like the final nail in the coffin for NFC as a consumer technology. I believe, I'm not saying I hope, but I think we can see the handwriting on the wall. As a consumer, what do you expect from a wallet? I mean, traditionally a wallet, here's my wallet here, it's a place to store my cards, my credentials, my identification. It's a personal kind of device. I don't know, do I need it to be a physical object? A lot of people have been arguing for years that NFC is better because I forget my wallet at home sometimes, but I never forget my mobile phone. Okay, that's a good argument, but is that the only argument for having a digital wallet? I mean, for the next 15 years, you're going to still probably have to have this with you every once in a while, especially if you're in Europe, by the way, because every once in a while you want to go to another country, and they might not have the technology. You got to bring your cards. So, what do we expect from a transaction token? Secure, tamper-resistant. We want it to be given to us by the bank or a trusted party in some way. We want to know that somebody's controlling the security elements on this device. Multi-factor. But do we also need a physical object? In India and many other places, they've been working with biometrics, you know, which I consider just like a card. It's harder to cut it off, you know. A finger is something you own, but it's actually something you're kind of carrying around with you as well. So it is a advanced version of one factor of authentication, which is something you have, you know. I don't know. This is a terribly messed up slide, but my question is, if NFC is being pushed into everybody's hands because it's technically possible to do and it eliminates a little bit of a wire, what's the reason that I would want to have this technology? Because I forget my phone one time a year and I forget my wallet 3 times a year? It's because I want everything in my phone. I'm that kind of person. Everything I could possibly put in my phone, I would like it. What's the reason? Again, if I use an NFC card or any other kind of card or biometrics or I show my face, I can still look on my phone in 1 second and see my loyalty points build up. I can see everything because the terminal there, the retailer is connected to the internet already. If somebody can tell me why it's interesting to tape all my cards onto my mobile phone so then I'm making the transaction with one device at one moment, cool. But if a card costs me $2.50 and a phone costs me $700, and I can't even choose what card to use if the battery's not working on my phone, and there's all sorts of other problems with phones, I'm not sure if I'm willing to go away from a card. Who's asking for this technology to be jammed into every phone? Everything that I have, please put it in one device. I think people talk about it. It's in Wired magazine all the time, but are consumers interested in paying for this capability? I'm not sure if anybody's actually asked them this. It just is a tech push trick and not a consumer pull marketing issue. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's a fact, but might be interesting to think about. So that's what I just said, basically. There's a couple functionalities that I think have changed what we do. SMS changed, it added something new. We were not able to do SMS before. Then we could send text messages. We could have asynchronous, latent conversations back and forth with individuals. We could do it if we couldn't make a call. We could do it if we're sitting at home in our rooms at night and didn't wake up our parents. This is a new functionality. Mobile data is a new functionality. Before we had reliable mobile data, or HSDPA, you couldn't do very much, and Java midlets and internet-connected phones didn't really matter. Apps, big deal. Transactions, maybe online shopping and payments, that revolutionized things. NFC doesn't revolutionize anything. It's just, instead of swiping a card, it's just tapping a card or tapping a phone. Just as a little way to eliminate wires. Virtualization is critical, right? We all know that getting whatever possible into a mobile phone, people using apps, is really valuable. For the Rabobank that I've worked for years, we've had huge amounts of customer contacts on a regular basis and almost no more branch visits. The average amount of times a Dutch consumer visits a bank branch today in any bank is 1 time every 7 years, right? That's the number. But so if I'm building an app, how can I sell a mortgage, which is the only really high-value consumer product a bank wants to sell, via a mobile app? It's a process that requires a lot more conversations, trust. You want to see big screen stuff. You want to meet with somebody. So the challenge is virtualization, great, but if I have to, like the United States banks are doing now, offer free coffee and sandwiches to get people to come back into my bank to have a conversation, then virtualization is not necessarily a goal on its own. It's actually just a means to something. What is the end, you know? Everybody in the Netherlands was already using internet banking, almost 100% in penetration. So a mobile app is just another way to do virtual banking. So I have one final concept. It's one final set of slides. And I came up with this idea a couple years ago. Joost, you can tell me when I did it. I don't know when it was. 2 years ago, 3 years ago maybe? I don't know. And it's, of course, Moore's Law risky. But I kept thinking, how can me as a consumer, how can a retailer, how can a brand, a merchant sales organization that's selling consumer goods, for example, benefit from technology, not just by pushing a technology to eliminate a card into my hand. Normally what's happening in a supermarket is that you have advertising through the supermarket, you have a little bit of a promotion at the end of the aisle, a lot of stuff being promoted because that's the sale of the week, and you have sort of discounts, etc. On the internet, we know what this is about. It's sort of permission marketing. If I say that I'm a guy that likes hamburgers, then I'm going to get a spam when I'm near a hamburger place. McDonald's is going to send me a discount for this and this and this. But what this does is it relies on me as a profile, my personal interests. I have to give that information to get value back. So I had this concept, how could I get value without giving any information away about myself? So say I'm in a supermarket, I'm walking around, and I buy some stuff. So I buy some spaghetti, right? I buy some other stuff like Parmesan cheese, oregano maybe, some olive oil. It kind of, from my behavior alone, it's looking like I'm going to make like a pasta dinner, right? So if I use my mobile phone, and this could be NFC, or it could be Bluetooth LE, or it could be optical recognition, or QR codes, or any other kind of technology you want. But if I was saying, in real time, here's what I'm doing, not who I am, but here's what I'm doing, then potentially I could get a discount free spaghetti sauce or half off spaghetti sauce. It's a targeted advertising based on what I'm doing in real time. I get benefit because I get the spaghetti sauce. The advertiser gets benefit because he's not advertising everywhere. He's targeting directly me. And the retailer gets benefit because the retailer offered me value from the network, the combination of these elements in real time, without me saying I'm Dan Armstrong. It's just based on what I'm doing. What kind of value do you have for me as a consumer? So this thought experiment was my thinking about how do you actually add value to do something you can't currently do with a bag of coupons or with a transaction capability or a loyalty card. How can I extract value from the network without identifying myself directly? And I think technologies could do this stuff. And I know there's a lot of people sitting in closed rooms with some technology and some venture capital funding, thinking about new ideas about how this would work, how to patent this. I think the future of value that applications can bring to us is about this kind of stuff. So adding 1 and 1 together and getting 3 somehow instead of just getting 2. And I think that we're also in a position now, these days, to ask those questions and then deliver that kind of stuff. Before it was just playing around with concepts and not necessarily delivering this. So that's basically my presentation. It's nothing very structural or salient, I know, but just a thesis that's based on looking at things from a consumer perspective and not necessarily from the business perspective, which are, of course, all of our customers, so we can't ignore them. But I think really interesting new applications, developments, and also behaviors can be generated by reversing the concept. So I don't know if it's in time. I hope it is, and I can answer any questions maybe quickly, but that's my spiel. Yeah.